Joining me right now is Florida Senator and member of the Senate Foreign Relations Select Intelligence and Appropriations Committees, Marco Rubio. Senator, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
First, give me your reaction to the DNC so far. What's your takeaway?
Well, I haven't watched every bit. To be frank with you, I haven't been watching it. We had elections here in Florida on Tuesday, a lot of important primaries. But obviously, I've watched the recap of it. Look, it's a convention. I mean, every year, every 4 years, both parties get together and all their most active and well-known people get together and talk really bad about the other side. So my reaction to it is it's going to be a close, hard-fought election. I think there's going to be a very clear choice. I personally do not believe that Joe Biden has the strength to confront the major challenges this country's facing, whether it's China, whether it's Iran, whether it's the need to rebalance our trade relationships and rebuild our economy and have an industrial capacity once again in this country that's stronger than what we have right now. I mean, that's going to take a lot of strength. It's going to take a lot of energy to really put behind it. And I just think President Trump is the only one of the two candidates that's going to be able to do that.
Well, you make a lot of good points. And unfortunately, in these 3 nights so far, you haven't had one word of China. You haven't had one word of the crime taking place across our cities, across our country, in so many of our biggest cities. I mean, it's really glaring that you don't see any commentary whatsoever about this. I mean, you obviously have the flow of information. Can you give us a sense of where we are, for example, on Iran and where we are in China? What are the priorities from your standpoint?
Yeah, and I guess from what I've seen in the coverage, there's been very little discussed about foreign policy and national security at all. Look, the relationship between the U.S. and China is going to define the 21st century. And whether we get it right or not is going to determine what kind of country we are, what kind of country our children are going to have. And I think the reason why it's not being discussed is, frankly, I mean, Joe Biden has been part of that bipartisan consensus that's existed for 30 years of belief that once China got rich, they would start following the rules and become a democracy, and it didn't work out. And now we're paying a terrible price for it. And President Trump's the first president to sort of really confront that challenge and begin to take it on. So it is shocking that isn't being discussed. And on the issue of what's happening, look, all across this country, you have violent mobs in the street attacking not just law enforcement, but innocent people. Some guy got pulled out of a car a couple days ago and almost beaten to death. I mean, you've got them trying to burn down a federal courthouse. I mean, irrespective of how you feel about the issues, that kind of anarchy, that kind of disorder in streets of major cities in America, oftentimes tolerated and potentially even supported by some political figures, has to be addressed. I mean, no country can be safe and secure with that kind of anarchy and disorder in the street. And for those two things to sort of be glossed over, I think is a shocking development here over the first 3 nights.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a do-over of 2016. That's exactly what they did in 2016, thinking that Hillary Clinton would win, so they really didn't go deep into any of the issues. It was all, well, I'm not Donald Trump, so vote for me. Yeah. Senator, I want to ask you about this Senate Intel Committee releasing the final report on the Russia meddling in the 2016 election. The report finding that the FBI gave unjustified credence to the Steele dossier, said that Russia did take advantage of members of President Trump's transition team. Your reaction to the findings in the Intel report?
Well, look, that was it was over 200 interviews, over 1 million pages of documents. It was passed overwhelmingly by a bipartisan majority and on both sides. In fact, I think almost entirely by a bipartisan majority. So the point being is that on the FBI piece of it, it's actually very troubling because what you have here is a document prepared by a foreigner, relying on foreign sources, not vetted. The CIA told the FBI, do not rely on this document. This document does not meet any of the standards that we look for when talking about gathering information. And they relied on it anyways. And it was the piece that everyone's missing is they were shopping that document around in October of 2016. And no one, to their credit, I don't often say this, but every outlet in America turned it down. They said, we don't know what that is. And it was only after the FBI kind of gave it credibility and relied on it and told people, we think there might be some truth to this, that you saw it being reported, and then BuzzFeed published the whole thing. And it's a frightening thing because what it means is from now on, anybody can hire someone to go out, maybe a foreign intelligence agency, prepare some document that claims to have all this information about a candidate, put it out there in the public domain because somebody in a federal agency doesn't like you. And you don't have time to defend yourself against it. Later on, it's disproven, but it's too late. The election's over. So perhaps the most concrete foreign interference effort that we saw in 2016, and the other ones were very serious. Let there be no doubt. The Russians did meddle and continue to meddle along with Iran and China. But the one we can point to and say the one that hasn't been talked about enough that was a piece of foreign interference was that dossier.
Let me ask you this. I mean, they did not tell the FISA court that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats paid for it. Did you know that I'm talking early on in 2016, did you know that Hillary Clinton paid for this?
No, I don't think anyone knew the origins of it. And beyond it wasn't just who paid for it, by the way. Right. Now they did not tell anybody, but it wasn't just the origins, it's the sources it relied on. It was relying on other foreign sources. In essence, we may never be able to prove it, but I can tell you if a foreign government decided we're going to introduce disinformation into a campaign, this is a tactic they could use. This is a tactic they could use to introduce narratives into a campaign by working through someone that used to be an official in some other government at some point, but now makes his money putting these kinds of things together and putting it out there under the veneer of some intelligence document. And then you've got the FBI saying, we think there might be some credibility to it. That's all they need for someone to publish it and run with it. And you can't just defend yourself against it. It's a very dangerous precedent. And I think the FBI really and those individuals responsible for that need to be held into account. And I'm glad to see some of them are starting to be held into account by the Justice Department.
So do you think we'll see indictments from John Durham?
Well, obviously, we don't know because they do it. John Durham's a professional, a career professional. He's not going to tell anybody what he's doing. He's not going to be leaking it to the press the way some other people like to do it. But we've already seen a couple people plead guilty, and I think there are obviously more. Remember, when these people plead guilty and cut a deal, oftentimes part of that deal is we're going to give you information about what other people did. And so I don't know what the timeline is on it, but I can certainly tell you that something like this could not have happened unless some people in there ignored the advice of career intelligence professionals that told them, don't use this thing. We have no idea where it came from. We have no reason to believe it's true, but they used it anyway. There was a reason why they did that. We need to know what that reason was, and we need to know who was behind that. And we're starting to find out.
Senator, I've got a question. I've been thinking about this for a while because I know that before they started spying on the Trump campaign and using the dossier to take him down, they were investigating the email situation of Hillary Clinton. And it was really no investigation. We know that. They didn't really investigate her in any way. But your colleague, Senator Ron Johnson, has told me that he saw emails to Barack Obama from Hillary Clinton back and forth where it said, to the president from Hillary home server. So knowing what we know about how China has this espionage campaign on the United States, is there any chance that the Chinese Communist Party did not know that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were communicating on an unsecure server?
Yeah, and I haven't seen those. Obviously, I have no reason to say that distrust. Our inquiry was into something different. We'd have no jurisdiction over something like that. He has government oversight in that committee. We just have intelligence oversight. But your point is well taken, and that is these are sophisticated operations, especially the Chinese. And I think you have to assume if you are sending emails and you are a high target figure from a private server, the Chinese have access to it. And they can use it in a couple ways. They can use it to know what you're thinking, or they could potentially use it in a hack and leak operation. They can use it, frankly, to manufacture emails, put it on your server, and then leak that stuff and use it for interference. It's a very dangerous time. And look, the Russians and Putin, they've been doing it a long time. They're good at what they do, but they're largely focused on getting us to fight with each other and weakening us internally. The Chinese are a much graver threat over the long term. They are better at it. They have more capabilities. They're larger. They have more money. I mean, the Chinese threat is being understated here. They are going to continue to mess with American politics to try to shape both the elections and our policy debates in a direction that's favorable to them. And you know, accessing the emails of a political figure is most certainly something they have the capability of doing.
Exactly, which is why it's so much more outrageous that for 2 years, this dossier and garbage about Trump was floated throughout the country, making everybody go nuts, that the question about collusion, and in fact, it was just a lie. Real quick, I got breaking news on the screen, Senator. American Airlines is going to be suspending flights to 15 U.S. airports in October amid low travel demand. This is the result of the coronavirus pandemic hitting the travel industry. 700 flights will be canceled as part of these cutbacks. You and your colleagues have been trying to come up with some stimulus here. Where are we on this? You're seeing American Airlines now suspending flights to 15 U.S. airports in October because of this weak demand. Your reaction?
Well, and it's very damaging, not just to the airports, the vendors, the people that work for the airlines and the ground crews, everybody that does work there, and obviously for tourism and travel. But I would say that where we are on this deal is very simple. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have decided that, as of now anyways, doing nothing is better for them politically. They think that that Americans are going to blame Republicans and President Trump for the failure to pass another stimulus, so they've kind of dug in. I'm hoping they'll change their minds, or that rank and file Democrats will demand they change their minds. We do need to do more, and I'm hopeful we can. But so far, it's Schumer and Pelosi that are blocking it.
All right, we'll be watching. Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much.
Thank
Senator
you.
Marco Rubio
Thanks
joining us there.